I'd like to call the finance meeting to order. Roll call, please. Oh, no, we don't do roll call, do we? Number one.
Consider approval of Finance Committee minutes of August 6, 2018.
Motion.
Make a motion we accept.
Second. Anybody want to second this?
I thought you just seconded it.
No, I'm asking for one.
Well, I'll second it if that's what you're looking for.
Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston,
Yes.
Patrick Cale.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson,
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes.
Item number two.
Consider approval of claims for all city departments August 1st, 2018 through August 15, 2018.
Make a motion we accept.
Second?
Have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston,
Yes.
Patrick Cale.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes.
Hey, we were supposed to ask if the purchasing committee met today.
Yes, purchasing committee did meet, and we did review claims, and we do appreciate staff looking into any questions that we did have, and everything was in order.
I need a roll call again.
No.
Hey, sorry about that, Wayne. I was trying to get done in 2 minutes.
And you done it.
Nobody wants to speak to me, so that's it.
Now we'll call to order the Public Works Committee meeting, item number one.
Consider approval of Public Works Committee minutes of August 6, 2018.
I'll now entertain a motion.
Move the approval.
Second.
Got a motion and second. Any questions regarding it? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Cale.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes. Item passes. Item number two.
Consider approval of ordinance number 4053A of the City of Muskogee, Oklahoma, amending Chapter 22 Business Regulations, adding Article 16 Medical Marijuana, Sections 22-674 Definitions, 22-675 General Requirements, 22-676 Medical Marijuana Dispensary Allowed and License Requirements, 22-677 Commercial Medical Marijuana Growing and/or Processing Facilities Allowed and License Requirements, 22-678 Medical Marijuana Wholesale and/or Storage Facilities Allowed and License Requirements, 22-679 Medical Marijuana Growing for Personal Use Allowed and License Requirements, 22-680 Penalty by Providing for Repealer, Severability, and Declaring an Emergency.
Outstanding job. Mr. Tucker.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm actually going to turn this over to Mr. Beasy to present on this. He's done a ton of work in preparing this ordinance and keeping us up to date on the ever-changing rules from the Oklahoma State Department of Health. And so with that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Mr. Beasy for an overview.
Thank you, Attorney Tucker. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, what you have before you is a current stab based on current state law medical marijuana ordinances for business regulation within the city of Muskogee. We've broken the medical marijuana licenses into three categories, with a fourth category for personal growth under the personal license for medical marijuana. The first is medical marijuana dispensaries. These are the retail outlets. The second is a marijuana growing and or processing facility. And the third is a wholesale or storage facility. And then, as I said, the last would be the personal growth. Within these, we have done all we can, including with the updates, of following state law exactly. A number of communities have tried to modify and add things in. In our opinion, from our office, that's inviting a lawsuit. If we try to go beyond what the state has established, there are a number of lawyers who are already prepared to go after and attack anything which may deviate from what the state has approved, and we respect that. We also understand that not only now, but in the near future, there will be changes, and when the new legislative session starts in January, we'll have changes beyond that. So we've written this in a way where it can be continually updated, and will also update itself because we've said if there are changes, they'll be incorporated by operation. We have some general requirements. We've tried to treat this just like any other business ordinance in the city. We are not regulating medical marijuana. We are issuing business licenses, just like if someone opens up a restaurant or a clothing store or any other type of establishment, we have certain requirements for them to operate within the city. Those include zoning requirements, certain health and safety requirements, and I will tell you, I give Gary Garvin a lot of credit as we went through this. He worked very closely on making sure that we were in compliance with all of our other operations, so we didn't treat medical marijuana any more or less strictly. So as we go through, one of the things that is specific to a medical marijuana business from our research has been making sure that we protect the community through noxious odors. If there's anything through the processing, we've included specific requirements that they meet certain filtration standards so they don't create a public nuisance. If there is some type of issue, we will declare that a public nuisance and we will address it through our normal nuisance abatement procedures. Specifically on these, and I'll try to go through these quickly because it's just a business permit. With medical marijuana dispensaries, those have been set up that they can be put in C1, C2, C3, or the central business district. That's where they'll be restricted to operation. With the commercial medical marijuana growing and or processing facilities, in addition to the C1, C2, C3, and central business district, they'll be allowed in A, agricultural, light industrial, or heavy industrial. When we do medical marijuana wholesale and or storage facilities, the requirements for zoning change a bit. We now take away the commercial district and the commercial zoning qualifications, and we leave it only in agricultural, heavy, and light industrial. The thinking behind that restriction is for wholesale and storage facilities, A, we have specific regulations for storage facilities now. This is consistent with those current zoning regulations. Also, if you're going to have a house or a warehouse that does storage or wholesale, they're probably going to have a larger need for trucking, which could be invasive if you put it into a central business or commercial district. So you're going to have larger trucks coming and going. That's why we've zoned it this way. It's consistent with what we're doing now with other business of the same sort. Finally, the medical marijuana for growing for personal use. Again, we mirror the state almost exactly, the same limitations on number of plants and number of seedlings. The biggest thing as we look through these ordinances are costs. For the personal growth, it's a $50 yearly fee. That fee basically covers the application and any inspection and follow-up. For the other classifications, the fee currently is set at $750. It's an annual fee. Something to remember when we talk about fees related to this, there is no specific calculation or standard under the state that we can or cannot set. We set it based on what our costs are going into enforcement reviews, upkeep, things like that. So as we review an application, we have to go out and we have to review the area. We think about our costs as they're incurred. We do the same thing as it relates to water fees and the like, that we charge what we cost. So when we put this together, we did that with that in mind. The fees vary widely. I've researched what other communities have done. Not a lot of communities have adopted this yet. Some go beyond what the state sets as a maximum under their scheme, which is $2,500. Some go below that. It really is up to what the manager can work with the treasurer and establish what those fees are. I think what we've put in here is fairly close to what the costs could be, but these are all anticipated. We don't know until we get going what our actual expenses are, so we're going on estimated expenditures now. Much like water, we review that every few years and make sure that the fees we have set are consistent with what we need to do so that we're in compliance with statutes. With that being said, that is a very quick overview. I would recommend approval. I'm happy to answer any questions. Also understand that this is a working draft. We will have to change with the state, but we can also change based on your discussions or recommendations.
Since you based the fee off of the $750 off the fee, I remember when we first saw this, it was $2,500. Isn't that correct?
In the draft I put together, because I needed to put something in there, I actually graduated them. I think I had some of the larger operations at the higher $2,500, the smaller retail operations at maybe $250 or $500. Those were really as placeholders. Through the council communications lunches and talking to individual council members, these numbers were the latest kind of guidance we believed we had to put in here. But again, they're not set and they're subject to change depending on what the council would like.
Is it possible to put in a fee, like if Garvin or the guys that have to go out and check on the manufacturing of this, if we could like charge, make sure that we're covering our costs by if we have to go back out and check up on it, like make sure the fencing's up or something like that. Is there a cost, like a continuation fee that they'd have to pay, or is that?
That's really what this fee is. Now, we have to look at this on parallel levels because we're talking about multiple fees. If I'm coming in to open a business and I need a certificate of occupancy, I still have to pay a fee for those visits and inspections. These are a separate and independent fee from that. So when we talk about going out and making those visits, they're already paying one fee for that. They're not going to get this license without that license, so it will have gone through the first layer. Then this license will be specific for things which might not be looked at during those inspections, like the ventilation and filtration. Really, there's not much beyond that separately except making sure it's secure, it has the proper security, but those really are the distinct things to this fee.
Because during the luncheons, I was thinking the $2,500, and like I said, and this is probably where some people are going to look at me. Some people are going to frown, some people are going to laugh. But I was like, more the merrier. I mean, let's set the license so we can have as many of these people build these things as possible in our county, because it's tax base. We're talking about, we need tax dollars. It's tax dollars to the city. It helps us build our roads. People gripe about our roads. Let's use it for our roads. Let's use it for whatever we need to use it for to help Muskogee grow. I guess if we smoke marijuana in Muskogee, we grow weed, we grow our streets. I don't know, but I'm all for it. So the pricing is kind of debatable up among each councilman. I've heard different values. $750 to $1,000 seems fair to me. So I'm somewhere in the middle of there. So.
Any other questions from council for Mr. Beasley? We also have 3 citizens that are signed up to speak to this item. So one question that I had, even though this is for medical use, and if they're out on parks or any other of our city properties and it's for smoking, it still will fall under regulations of smoking on property, correct?
Correct. The state very specifically said it would treat both smokable and vape type products as smoking under the current state smoking ordinance. So it would be prohibited in the same ways that the state would allow. Also, our ordinances would cover that.
Okay. Just wanted to clear that up for me.
I do anticipate that's one of the areas which may be challenged through litigation at some point based on some of the pro-marijuana initiatives.
Because it can be consumed in other ways for the medical use.
Correct.
On those public properties.
And that is a concern. I've watched a few other city council meetings from different areas. That's been brought up consistently, is about the smoking in public. But the state was very specific, even when they went back and revised the regulations, to make sure to keep that in and that it was well articulated.
Thank you, Mr. Beasley. Other questions from council at this time?
Have you heard, is there any truth to the rumor that Merle Jr. was reworking the lyrics to his daddy's song?
We can only hope. Best marketing tool we have for the city.
I trust you're well aware that this thing's going to be reworked and reworked and reworked, likely. You're prepared for that.
I keep a draft copy open on my computer. It changes daily, sometimes hour by hour.
Thank you.
I do appreciate our council working on this so quickly. I think we're very early on from other communities on this. Thank you, Matt.
Mr. Johnson,
Appreciate
may I be
it.
recognized?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Beast. What's the fee like if you get caught smoking marijuana in the park?
Currently, again, until everything goes into place, it would be a $400 fine and be charged as a misdemeanor if you can articulate a medical need to the police officer.
Okay, thank you.
And later on, the fees can be changed if they turn out to not be workable.
Absolutely,
right?
and we've been in discussion with Manager Miller about that consistently. You know, it's just like every other fee, whether it be towing or whatever, it has to be related to our expenses. And so since we're kind of going into this blind, we had to take an educated guess, but it will be constantly under review, and when we eventually start looking at this, it'll probably morph into putting the fee into Schedule A, just like every other fee, which will be reviewed on a more timely basis.
You know, one likely scenario might be that the state puts more onus on the cities for some of these regulatory items, and that'll be more expense to the community to...
Well, and the caveat to that, too, to be aware of is the state was very specific in their language, which said that a city or a municipality could be more permissive, but we could not be more restrictive. So in the case of like the number of marijuana plants for personal growth, they've limited it to 6 seedlings, 6 mature plants. The way the language is written, we could allow 50 plants if we wanted, but we couldn't go below the numbers they've allowed. So they've kind of created that, but only in the positive, not in the negative.
One thing I do want to clarify, and I think you said it, but it bears drawing attention to, the $50 fee for the personal growth is not a fee for having a medical license. It's simply the fee for growing. So you could be a licensed user who just goes to his dispensary and purchases it, and then you wouldn't have to register with the city. So I think that bears clarifying as well.
And we did a number of thoughts specifically to that, if I may briefly. The reasons we did that is when you look at growing for personal use, if you're growing inside, you have issues such as renting from someone. State law specifically says you have to have permission from your landlord. You have issues related to mold and ventilation. We want to make sure that when people are growing, it's not going to affect the health, safety, or welfare of anyone who might be living in the same complex. So what we are looking at, like Attorney Tucker said, is specifically health, safety, welfare, and that you're growing within proper, safe, and acceptable means. Has nothing to do with your personal use. We're not registering users. The other kind of tangential benefit to this is if somebody calls in a tip, hey, I think so-and-so in apartment C has got drugs, it'll give the officers a chance before they go get a search warrant to come look and, oh, they've registered that they're growing, so maybe we approach it differently than a warrant, which would involve maybe some more aggressive tactics we wouldn't need.
Excellent questions. Thank you.
Any
others from council? Thank you, Mr. Beasley. Our first one to speak on this is Stephen Ezell. If you would give us your address. You have 5 minutes.
Stephen Ezel, 6121 South 6th Street East. I know that we can't further restrict medical marijuana, at least by how the ordinance is being worded. But I want you to know I do have my very grave concerns. One, the way this law, the state law, was even written was just so vague in its nature that the margin for error is just so precariously razor thin. When I was working the poll at the primary election, the biggest majority of people, young people who were coming in and voting on this, were under the age of 30, and they weren't exactly voting on it for medical purposes. One of the main concerns I have is how problematic it could be for law enforcement officers. Have any of you ever heard of what was known as the Volstead Act? It was the act that created prohibition. It was virtually unenforceable. Eventually had to be repealed. Also, although medical marijuana, although they say may not be addictive, but if it's misused by anyone, it can create some very harmful side effects. Short and long term can be respiratory distress. It can cause irregular, if not elevated heart rate, blood pressure. It can cause insomnia, restlessness, increased or loss of appetite. And although it's not been fatal, it can impede your judgment and reflexes when you need them the most, like, say, operate a piece of machinery or if you are behind the wheel of a vehicle. Also, what's going to prove to be most problematic is if a person has medical marijuana, under federal law, they cannot legally own a weapon. So you can't have your cake and have your pie at the same time. So people are going to ask, well, do I want medical marijuana or do I want my Second Amendment rights? They're going to have to choose. Because unfortunately, the way the federal law is written, you can't have both. I fear that this problem is going to end up becoming more problematic than the opioid issue. And my personal opinion is if a person has a medical license to have marijuana, then when their medical marijuana dosage runs out, they need to have themselves thoroughly checked over by their doctor to determine, does their medical condition currently exist that they continually need to refill a medical marijuana prescription. Now, if their condition is chronic, then their dosage can be reduced or upgraded gradually, but you don't want to do it exponentially. It could kill you. And if it doesn't require it, then their prescription needs to be ended. And in my opinion, you don't need to be a general practitioner to prescribe it. You need to be a medical specialist in a field that is basically determined this is a condition for which medical marijuana may be prescribed and required on a regular basis. I just have my concerns. I just thought I would express them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ezel. Any questions from council or clarifications? Our next speaker will be Miss Teresa Rutlinger. You would give us your address.
Teresa Rutlinger, 2500 Shelby Court. I'm a little bit confused about the dispensaries, and I know you can't answer my. Well, I guess ask Mr. Tucker. On the dispensaries, they'd have to have a prescription from a doctor. Is that correct? Okay.
That's correct. That's under state law, yes.
Okay. All right then. I am going to disagree with Mr. Hall. I think that the fees need to be higher to start off with. I do not want to see dispensaries and all kinds of things all over the place in Muskogee. That's just my 2 cents worth.
You can discuss. You can ask her questions.
I think we should limit the facilities if at all possible, and possibly by having the higher fees to start off with, just to kind of get our feet wet and see exactly how it's going to go in this town, how it's going to go in this state before we get inundated and then have to figure out how we're going to get rid of a lot of these things if it comes to that. I'm a little bit concerned, too, if grandma's living in a house and she's got maybe the 20-year-old son that's married and the grandkids and what have you. She's the one that's got the license to go and grow the marijuana. We know that more than likely the 20-year-old son is going to be taking care of the marijuana. There's an awful lot of temptation there for people to, yes, give some to grandma and maybe some to end up on the streets. I'm a little bit concerned about that. I know nothing about marijuana. I know what it looks like, but 12 plants seems like it would be a lot, but maybe it's not. I think also, as far as on the fees, when you do the renewal fees, I think it should be mandatory that they re-inspect these facilities. A lot of people are going to go and be real stringent so they can get this, and then they're just going to let things start sliding, because from what I understand, there's a lot of electricity spent on lighting on these marijuana facilities and what have you, and they're going to try and do shortcuts. Worried about our, quote, slum landlords that we might have in this town, the effect that it's going to have on those rental properties. I mean, we're going to be going down even further if they don't care what their properties are like now. They're going to go ahead and let people go and grow the marijuana. Concerned about the police. Their hands are a little bit tied as far as they pull somebody over. They've got a card. There are some checks that they can do. They had told me that as far as checking out to see if people are on marijuana, but there's no, breathalyzer test or anything like that. Worried about our schools. I mean, just from what problems they're having in California and Colorado, I just can't believe this happened in Oklahoma. I'm also about the ag zoning. Can you do it? There are a lot of people that have ag zoning that have houses on their property. I think that they should be at least 1,000 feet from these people's homes. If they've got show livestock, show horses and stuff like that, they don't probably want that 1,000, any closer than 1,000 feet from those particular barns either. I don't know if we can add that at all. And I need to know if there's any type of studies on the air that is coming out of these facilities, because for people that are growing crops and hay and what have you, we don't want that residue on products that we're selling to other people. I understand all the marijuana is going to be grown inside facilities. We're not going to have fields of marijuana that are growing in Muskogee. Is that correct? Everything's going to be, okay. And I think any property owner within 300 feet should be notified of any medical marijuana facility, dispensary, or whatever that's going into Muskogee. And I would encourage anybody to, if they are like-minded like I am, to go and contact your representatives in the government, federal government, and one of the ways to stop this is the federal government does not recognize it. If we as a state and a city are collecting taxes on it, if they get the taxes from us, then maybe we will stop this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Langer. Any questions from the council? Okay. Our next one is Kevin Swanson. If you would give us your address, please.
807 Southwest 19th Street, Wagner.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Kevin Swanson, and we are wanting to come to Muskogee with a dispensary and a grow. We've done our research. We want to make it the best one. We want to exceed everything the state's already doing. We feel like they aren't doing enough yet. So we've done our research. We have associates that have worked in Colorado and other states that have advised us on how this should be done. So we want to do a seed to sale program so that we can inventory things. It can be, track can be kept of what's going where, for starters. Little things, when we check IDs, we're going to check them 3 times. State says you have to once. You'll walk into the dispensary, you'll get your license checked right there by the security guard. A sales associate will come with you. He won't leave your side during the dispensary. He'll check it again in front of a camera. Your ID will be checked a 3rd time at the point of sale before you leave. So we're wanting to do this right. We don't want to come in. We're not going to have marijuana signs on the outside. We're not going to have plate glass windows. You're not going to know what's going on inside that business. No tie-dye vans outside advertising. This is medical. And when you see a father talk to his autistic daughter for the first time in 8 years when she takes a CBD oil, then there's an upside to this whole thing. Everybody seems to look at the downside. There's kids, people, cancer patients that this is going to help, and that's who we want to help. We're going to have a private dispensary where you can call by appointment only. So your younger or your older clientele that don't want to be a part of a private dispensary don't have to be. We'll take you to a counseling room. We'll take care of your business there. Some people don't need to see a dispensary, so we're not gonna make them. We want to do this right. We want to make Muskogee proud of the way we're going to come in and do this. So to answer some of the questions, some air environmental quality studies have been done in Denver. Emissions actually went down after they legalized it. You hear things of natures where marijuana incidents are going up 6% on average at the hospitals when they legalize it. What you're not hearing is that opioid prescriptions go down 12%. Fatalities go down. So there are goods to go with this product. It's doing good things. Every day we find out more. Studies are being done all over the nation. And so to hit the brakes on it and to try to shut it down would be a shame, we feel. So like I said, we're just going to try and do our utmost best to exceed what the state's implemented so that we're ready when they do come, and do it the right way. Do it how, let legislator take over. Get some labs, get some packaging. Everything that we feel like should be done, we're going to start that way so that we don't have to change. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from council?
No, I might make a suggestion to some of the folks that have come up to speak tonight. Our city has to comply with state law, and some of the concerns shared tonight are good, legitimate concerns. I would invite you to talk to your state legislators or go up to the state when they're having meetings on this medical marijuana subject matter and let them know your concerns and any impact that you can have on some of your concerns today. We're not going to be able to help you at city level, but it can be accomplished at state level, and then we'll follow their direction. And I believe that they're going to be changing rules and modifying rules and tightening this thing up a little bit, but your efforts on the state level will carry a little bit more weight than they will at our city level, because we just have to follow what the state law is.
Any other comments? I would
Mr.
like
Johnson,
Yes.
I have a question. Might be recognized.
Yes, sir.
I was just wondering, I watched a show the other night on TV about marijuana in California, and they sell it out of dispensaries, but they also privately they deliver it to individuals. Are you gonna have anything like that?
Mr. Van, who are you addressing your
The
question
gentleman
to?
just came up. I'm sorry.
Okay.
What's his name?
That's specifically prohibited under the state law.
Okay.
Delivery's not allowed.
That's not allowed.
Okay.
And I got one question for Mr. Garvin. Like on the zoning, it said agricultural.
Yes.
Okay, like on the zoning, like for cattle, what's that other one where, you can have 2 cows, you got so much land?
Urban residential type classification? No,
Yeah.
it's not allowed.
That's not allowed.
I mean, you can have it as a personal, if you have a personal license and you live there, you can have it, but not as a business.
But you can't have it as a personal.
Just anybody living in a single-family dwelling or duplex can get a personal license and grow it.
Okay.
Assuming they have the license for medical use.
Okay. Turn the floor back over to you, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Do I have a motion?
I make
Move
a motion.
Go ahead.
I make a motion we accept.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any other questions or clarifications on this item?
Mr. Chairman, one thing, the motion that we're accepting for the ordinance is the one that was passed out, not the one that was in the packet, because we have made some changes to expand the allowed zoning. So I just want that to be clear, that is the one that has been presented.
Yeah, this one would be hot off the press, and I'm sure if we were passing it next week, it would be another hot off the press.
It may be, yes.
So I have a motion and a second. Any other clarifications needed? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes.
We have no other items for Public Works Committee, except we do have recognition of citizens wishing to speak. I first have Stephen Ezel on update of the picnic for the cemetery project. Mr. Ezel, if you would give us your address again, please.
Stephen D. Ezel, 6121 South 6th Street East. I'm a member of the James F. Smith Memorial American Legion Post number 15. Good evening. The first time I came to you about this project was with my esteemed compatriot, Mr. Paul McKinstry, also the American Legion, back in March of 2018, just this year. What I have here before me, and what I want to make certain that I pass out to each of you, is basically an update of our progress so far. In order for you, you and contact list.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, just to let you know, basically, timeline-wise, our project is on time and on target. As a reminder, the date for the picnic is going to be November the 10th, the same day as the Veterans Day Parade. and it's going to start at 2:00 p.m. at Green Hill Cemetery. It's going to be to honor all of our veterans. You should note that we're going to be having 3 pre-event meetings at the American Legion, which you are all invited to attend. The newspaper will be there. The first meeting will be on September the 4th at 1 p.m. Second's going to be on October the 2nd, same time. And the last one's going to be on October the 23rd. These meetings will be for the purpose to discuss progress as we're going about for the event and to prepare any contingencies in case certain details either fall through or we experience certain difficulties. We would love your support and participation. Again, this is a number of the veterans' graves out there have fallen into very great disrepair. Just help clean up, help preserve their memories, help just promote pride in Muskogee and pride for our veterans. And I just want to thank you for your time, and I will be glad to answer any questions.
Just appreciate your work on this project, Steve.
Well, it's not just my work.
Thank you, Mr. Ezel. We did have someone wishing to speak, and they signed up just a little bit late. So I have a request to suspend the rules where they may speak to the council on an item.
I make a motion we suspend the rules for this evening.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second to suspend the rules where someone can speak on an item. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston,
Yes.
Patrick Kale,
Yes.
Wayne Johnson,
Yes.
Ivory Vance,
Yes.
Dan Hall,
Yes.
Jamie Stout,
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Okay, Mr. Jim Winter. It was on regarding smoking ordinance.
1205 North Edmond.
Thank you, sir.
Citizens of Muskogee, Oklahoma. My name is Jim Winter, a longtime resident, citizen of Muskogee, Oklahoma, USA, not to be confused with Moscow, Russia. Once again, I am amazed by the arrogant hype being promoted by the city manager of Muskogee and a confused city council that seeks to attack smokers by implementing a covert approach to control people, places, and things. Lost my place. By using smoke and mirrors, the city manager is unlawfully overreaching legitimate authority and usurping the law by endorsing a realistically unenforceable smoking ban. The city manager asserts a need for a backdoor bureaucratic harassment of the citizens of Muskogee. Is this in any way not a violation of their constitutional rights and civil rights? The mayor of Muskogee, the city manager, need a valid legal justification to enact any city of Muskogee ordinance that targets any minority of citizens based on the unfair or unequal treatment of taxpaying citizens. The City Hall of Muskogee needs to get out of the health department business and take care of Muskogee issues, which I actually see you are. I pat you on the back for what I am seeing tonight, especially. The City of Muskogee manager disregards the fact that tobacco users and those using vaping exotic mixtures are already being ripped off for state taxes, fees, and then paying additional unconstitutional excessive fees, which they actually support our salary, don't they? They also have civil rights. What happens when they decide enough is enough and a new victim is required? Now here it is, August 2018, we find a citywide fear of the smoker disregarding what is lawful in favor of bad policy. They would have you believe there is a threat of medically licensed marijuana users parading around the streets of Muskogee smoking the devil weed. Now this was just because it was written that way in the article. I don't think that that's relevant. Nothing could be further from the truth because, for one thing, the streets are not currently safe enough. We have a mayor promoting fear of the unknown by putting the cart before the horse, which I actually struck that, sorry. The mayor, city manager, and city council need to make a constructive effort to focus their attention on protecting Muskogee citizens, city visitors, bike riders, walkers, and joggers on the bike trail. I really realize I'm going away from the ordinance. The Fayetteville City officials need to address assaults, criminal activity, vandalism, intimidation by punk gang juveniles, homeless littering, and the intentional breaking of beer bottles on the trail, intentional to harm people.
Mr. Winter, I'm
All right.
sorry you're out of time.
Oh, that's all right. But I do appreciate what I've seen tonight.
Thank you.
I think you are actually going in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. That would conclude our Public Works Committee meeting tonight. Thank you.
I'll call to order our special call meeting in Muskogee City Council, August 20, 2018. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bob Coburn.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Here.
Dan Hall.
Here.
Marlon Coleman. Jamie Stout.
Here.
Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Hale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Item number 1A.
Consider an executive session to discuss and take possible action on the following. A, pursuant to Section 307B3 and C10, Title 25 Oklahoma statutes, consider convening an executive session to discuss the purchase of real property as well as to confer on matters pertaining to an economic development project within the city of Muskogee, and if necessary, take appropriate action in open session.
We'll now consider a motion regarding executive session.
Move we go into executive session.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any comment or discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Hale.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes. Motion carries. We'll now consider ourselves in executive session. If you would. We'll now reconvene from executive session. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bob Coburn.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Here.
Dan Hall.
Here.
Marlon Coleman. Jamie Stout.
Here.
Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Hale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Regarding item 1A, Mr. Tucker, please.
Thank you. Pursuant to Section 307B3 and C10 of Title 25 Oklahoma statutes, the City Council did convene an executive session to discuss matters pertaining to economic development. After discussing a proposal for the same, I believe an appropriate motion would be to approve submitting a response to an RFP for a development opportunity, inclusive of a plan of enticement with incentives, all as discussed in executive session, and to further authorize the city manager to execute any and all documents, forms, or other submittals necessary to facilitate full consideration of the city's response to the RFP.
Move for approval.
And a motion
Second.
and a second. Any question or comment? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Hale.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you for joining us for today's special meeting.